Aloha, welcome to Talking Pictures. I'm your host, Paul Booth. Well, it's actually Talking Pictures with Paul Booth. So, we were going to do a live podcast. That's why I have the mic plugged in, but we'll leave it there as a prop. Apparently, the server's too busy, but they're not too busy to collect our money for the internet. Anyways, I wanted to talk about the film Do the Right Thing. Again, California Angels, we don't get paid for these YouTube videos, so we are not infringing upon copyright. Do the Right Thing. I just saw this great special on Amazon Prime, a class reunion, and it interviewed. Obviously, this was a few years ago. It had Bill Nunn before he passed, and Samuel L. Jackson, Rosie Perez. The film launched so many careers. Nominated for 2 Oscars, of course, Best Screenplay for Spike, Best Supporting Actor for Danny Aiello. Spike made an interesting comment where he said, "This isn't a controversial film. It's just what was going on." And that really floored me because I saw this film. I was 10 years old. I remember my father sat me down and he said, "You cannot ever be racist. Don't ever judge someone on the color of their skin or their ethnicity." Now, of course, at 10 years old, you don't really know what ethnicity. You have an understanding of color of skin because you've been around people. And I don't even like saying colored people. I don't like saying white, black, anything. I'm so against it. So, and Do the Right Thing is part of that because movies have such a big influence on our family. They're how we communicate. Anyways, Do the Right Thing. Of course, now that it's a 30-year-old film, I have to think and realize that there's people that haven't seen this film. Quick synopsis: hottest day in Brooklyn. Racial tensions just get out of control. There's a small pizza place, which I could relate to because my father had a pizza place, a Sicilian American family. My grandmother and mother, and of course myself, are Sicilian American. And then the multiple ethnicity thing. My dad is white. My mother's also Mexican. So being on both sides, hearing racial slurs from white people about Mexicans and from Mexicans about white people. Now, of course, this is all just in my subconscious, the way this film is my film DNA, that I couldn't articulate it, of course, at 10. So I'm watching this film and it's very violent. It's rated R. The violence, you have to wonder, is violence when needed violence? That's not a question for me to answer. I'm not trying to sound all academic, but it's something that this film questions and puts out there for you as a viewer. Do the Right Thing is now a film that, to me, it's split. There's going to be people that have just like, everybody's seen it. Why are you talking about it? But we're also now amongst the millennial generation where they might not care. I'm not a millennial, so I don't know, obviously. They're not going to films for serious reasons. It's an interesting thing, and this ties into Do the Right Thing, that the cinematographer of Mudbound, Rachel Morrison, who we were lucky to have on our show, and also we had production designer Wynn Thomas, production designer of Do the Right Thing, on our show. But Rachel Morrison, who made Mudbound, it's this film about racism and all kinds of stuff. And then she's known for Black Panther, which again is advancement for, it's so tough. I don't like separating anyone by ethnicity, anything. I've actually been called racist because I like to say we're all just humans. But anyways, so with Do the Right Thing, to me, this film was just about people. There was angry people. The film poses an amazing question. It's about, there's also police brutality sprinkled in there, which is of course going on again today. Not all cops. We're not saying all cops. There's not all anything. There's not all men, all women. So, but what we want to say is I've seen police brutality. I had a cop messing with me the other night, shining a light at me and stuff because I looked a little too Mexican. I don't think it's because I looked like a regular white guy walking around. And so I remember being scared. And so Do the Right Thing, seeing this special, of course, it's not on Amazon Prime, but this film is something that you really need to watch, and maybe go back and rewatch it again as you've grown or had grandchildren or children that have married outside of just your culture. Because Do the Right Thing in 1989, the country, we're in Reagan, we're in Cold War, we're just a country that for some reason always has to dislike one group. I'm not going to go into the black white thing, but Do the Right Thing. So for me, I was thinking, my gosh, why are the non-white people destroying this pizza place? But also, why are the people with the pizza place using vulgar slurs that I had heard, unfortunately, from, I won't say who, but relatives, not my father or mother. But so knowing that the N-word had an impact and seeing these two things clash, but also coming from it as that we're all just people, that my Mexican relatives are just people, my white relatives are just people. So why are these two groups fighting? And Do the Right Thing, I could get into, it's beautifully shot by Ernest Dickerson, of course, film school classmates, Spike Lee, Wynn Thomas. They did many films together. Mo Better Blues, Malcolm X, not Clockers. They didn't Clockers. I know they did Crooklyn. But Do the Right Thing was just so influential to me because it frustrated me. It made me sad. It made me think. At the time, I was probably watching films with my older brother like Porky's, Revenge of the Nerds, Risky Business, stuff that was just what a older brother who's a teenage boy watches. And my father let me watch Born on the 4th of July. I remember that was another film that made me upset because soldiers were being spit on. And so it was kind of this Do the Right Thing. I want to wrap up by saying that what I like about it is that it spawned so much in me that I could just, for 7 minutes here, talk about just the tip of the cherry on the sundae, tip of the iceberg, barely anything. Part of the review, I admit, didn't make sense, but it's because this film has had such an influence that I can go in so many different directions. If anything, watch it for the great performances, the wonderful writing, seeing Samuel L. Jackson before he's Mr. Motherfucker, seeing Spike Lee when he's making films with audacious passion, and he's a younger filmmaker, and he's not just sometimes he really comes off like a reverse racist, and not going to get into that, but racism is racism. I don't care who you are. And you just get this guy who, before he's made big, huge films with Denzel, and before he's become a prominent figure, this is a film that made him a prominent figure. And go to his other films like Malcolm X and Clockers, which Martin Scorsese produced. I don't tell people to rush into Mo Better Blues or Crooklyn. Those are more personal Spike Lee films. I recommend Inside Man to anyone. That's later in his career. That's in the 2000s. I, of course, always say to watch Malcolm X. That's 1992, I believe. Denzel was up for the Oscar. I think he lost to Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman. But Do the Right Thing, just one of the films that for me, and would come 2 years before JFK, which pushed me into wanting to direct films. So the only film I've ever directed was a guiding light was Spike Lee, because I thought I have two goals. I want to make people think, and I want to make people frustrated, and I want to get some people upset about an issue. And I did those things. So thank you to Spike. Whoever's still around in this 9-minute and 40-second review, I appreciate it. But if you're not, that's cool too, because we're just here to talk pictures with Paul Booth. I'm your host. I love movies. You'll get that. Join us for more. Go to www.talkingpicturesla.com. Aloha.